Welcome to In the Black, where we celebrate stories of transformation, resilience, and rising into the life you were meant to live. I'm your host, Araceli, and this space was created to amplify voices often overlooked. Women who've come through the fire with wisdom, strength, and heart. Whether you're here for healing, clarity, or just good conversation, you belong here. Let's get into it. Today's guest is someone who embodies courage in motion, literally. After being diagnosed with a life altering brain tumor and facing major personal upheaval, Risa August was told she shouldn't push herself, shouldn't take risks, shouldn't dream too big. So she did the opposite. She got on her bike and rode 1,845 miles from Canada to Mexico, turning one of the hardest chapters of her life into a story of grit, freedom, and deep inner transformation. Her award winning memoir, The Road Unpaved, Border to Border with a Brain Tumor and a Bike, captures that journey, not just across the country, but back to herself. Since then, she's become a TEDx speaker, a Gestalt practitioner, and a passionate patient advocate for pituitary tumors. Rissa has been featured in over 100 podcasts, radio shows, and publications, and when she's not speaking or coaching, she's out living fully. Like her recent solo ride across northern Spain, which pushed her in ways she never expected. Despite living with a tumor and ongoing medical challenges, she continues to choose a life that's bold, aligned, and meaningful. Please welcome Rissa August.
Hi, Araceli. Thank you for having me. You have such a calming voice. I would love for you to just rub my head and read me a bedtime story. You have such a beautiful, calm voice. And I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have been told that so many times. So, I am a yoga licensed teacher, and back in the Midwest, I taught yoga, yin, meditation, but it was always the meditation, the relaxation part where people just always, came up to me like, "Oh, I love your voice. You should do a meditation YouTube classes or, things like that." And it it scared me. There's so many yoga teachers on YouTube. I'm like, "No, I can't do that."
Oh
But
my gosh. Yes, you can.
thank you so much. So I I knew that you had the tumor, but I did not realize that you still had the tumor. So that is miraculous in itself that you are, we'll get to it later about, if you have any struggles with that still, with all of that. But wow, first, do introduce yourselves. Tell us about Risa, who she is before TEDx, before the book, just plain old the real, not that that's not the real Risa, because that is the real Risa, but just Risa. If I were to meet her, since she was a little kid, now growing up, who is Risa?
Hmm. Well, this question's interesting because there was pre-diagnosis RISA and post-diagnosis RISA, and um, but starting from childhood, I grew up outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and had pretty much a middle class life, and but I was always this very adventurous kid. And I was also very aware. I was very aware as a child of people's energy, and so I was always trying to compensate or accommodate other people. Like I could tell if they felt uncomfortable, so I would try to make them feel comfortable, and things like that. And um, growing up, though, I was always the good kid, the rule follower, and I carried that into adulthood. I strived for perfection and was also very kind of rigid in my thinking. And I didn't understand why everyone in the world didn't operate the way I did. And then suddenly I'm diagnosed with this crazy disease and brain tumor, and that was kind of this shift in my life. And what I say is like that's kind of when I woke up. That's when real Rissa started emerging, and she's way cooler. I like her way better.
Was there something, I mean, that's so interesting. And, you hear that a lot with the stories of, I thought I was living, but I really wasn't living until something just out of your control happens. Was there something in your life growing up with your parents or adults or someone that kind of made you be more aware of people's energies and made you want to, be a rule follower and kind of molded you into this person that you recall?
Yes. You know, part of it, at least my theory is, I grew up in a very dysfunctional household with, and there was abuse and alcoholism and narcissism. And I remember thinking if I could just be as good and perfect as possible, that either I'll fly under the radar or, something I was always told was, well, we know you're okay, so we don't have to worry about you. And I certainly didn't want my parents to worry about me. They had enough going on, right? And so I just thought if I was good, like if I could be as good as I possibly could, then maybe it would make everything else around me better. Um, I also think, um, and this isn't something I believe, this is new territory for me. But I also think on some level I'm an old soul, and I think I was as a child. I have some pretty fascinating experiences that I remember so clearly, and looking back on them, I'm like, wow, that's pretty profound thinking for someone in first grade. But I remember those moments very clearly, and so that's like I said, new territory for me, like opening up to maybe there is such thing as soul's wisdom, and you know and potentially living multiple lives. Um so and I still get a little like kind of uncomfortable saying that, but it's like, but I want to believe that it's there's something really magical about it. And um I don't know, it's almost makes things a little easier to handle or something.
Yeah. Is there one particular memory that you would like to share or an instance?
Sure. I remember this one in detail. My parents just had a really horrible fight the night before, and I have an older brother who's sometimes involved in the fights. And again, I would try to keep the peace and calm things down, but it was a really horrible fight. We were probably up till all hours in the morning. Um, I think my mom left, and so my brother and I had to get ourselves ready for school, which was pretty normal. Again, I was in first grade, and I remember digging through this bag of hand-me-down clothes that I got from a neighbor, and I found this lovely pink corduroy um, dress, like romper, and this floral little like matching blouse, with flowers on it that matched the dress that had the same pinks in it. And I had pink tights and a pair of loafers that matched. And it's almost like I was so empowered at this young age to put together this amazing outfit that and get myself dressed and get lunch packed and get myself to school. And I remember sitting on the bus in school, and I think I was in the second seat on the right side of the bus, and I'm looking out the window, and I was thinking, like, there's got to be a better life than this. Like I somehow felt like I didn't fit in this family, like in all this fighting in this. And I remember thinking, like, I know there's something better out there. Like, I know I am meant for a bigger life, than this. Like I just felt really out of place. And and again, it was on the way to first grade elementary school. My teacher's name was Mrs. Jerkovics, and like I remember the details so clearly, and how I just knew I was meant for a different life. I didn't know what that meant, at the time, but that's certainly what I was thinking in my little pink corduroy romper dress.
Yeah, I often thank you for sharing, first of all. I think I've come to realize, or there's a pattern of if you grow up in that kind of environment, we often are more attuned to people's energy, and we are forced literally to grow up faster than the kids around us. So we are almost robbed of our childhood. And there was an episode where I was trying to describe The Cosby Show and how I would always love putting that show on because the parents cared so much. When a child had an issue, the parents talked with them, made them work through it, understand. There was empathy, there was love, and so much connection and growth that happened, in every scenario that you could think of. And I just wished that for my family. And I thought the exact same thing. I mean, as a, first grader, second grader, I would wake up to a Barbie workout video. And I joke with people all the time. She had a workout video. Jennifer Love Hewitt was in it as a kid behind her. I didn't know Jennifer Love Hewitt at the time. And I would just, what she would do dance aerobics, and so I would do dance aerobics. I outgrew her. And then I found Denise Austin on PBS. So I would work out with her. Then after that, I would watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And then I would probably like take a nap because it was so early in the morning. Because Denise Austin, I think, was at 5 in the morning.
Wow.
Then I would I would take a nap, eat breakfast, and then walk myself to school. And
Wow.
then that would just repeat. So, yeah, and then, of course, hearing your parents fight and you have to fix your own breakfast, and, we would eat the shells out of the eggs because we didn't know how to crack an egg at such a young age. And so, it forced us to grow up. And I hear that with a lot of similar upbringings. You have this intuition that perhaps other people didn't have to tap into because they weren't in survival mode, fight or flight. But no, thank you so much for sharing. And
Gosh, there's some comfort, and I don't, I reluctant to use that word, but there's some comfort knowing that there's other people out there that understand what that was like to, and maybe you were going to school without a lunch. It depended if there was groceries in the house or not. And yeah.
yeah, and that's why I love having this podcast because, I get to share your story and everyone else's. And so maybe there are people out there who need to relate to someone because it's not easy to talk about what we've been through. But I am so grateful that you're on here, able to speak about those things and share. And then hopefully we'll get to the part where you're doing amazing things with, what you were given and you weren't held down in a box and, felt like you couldn't blossom and uplift others. So I'm excited to tap into that. Let's start with the diagnosis. Not just what happened medically, but what it stirred in you emotionally and spiritually. So what was the moment you knew life was never going to look the same?
Gosh. So when I was diagnosed, like I had noticed 7 years earlier is when I noticed there were changes happening in my body. And so I was a really rigid athlete. I was an Ironman athlete. I was a mountain climber and CrossFitter and anything intense and slightly obnoxious. I was really into it, or into intense things. Even my yoga was like hot yoga. So, um, but I noticed about 7 years prior to diagnosis, something was off in my body. And there were all these changes happening that I couldn't explain. And I kept going to my doctor, and they kept saying, we're not worried. You're an athlete. Your blood work's fine. And I kept saying, no, I'm pretty sure there's something off. And I put on, like, despite being a rigid athlete, and I was very, I wouldn't say a purist, but pretty close. I battled orthorexia. So I struggled, like, it was really important what I put into my body. Um, and so, um, I just felt like I just knew like this intuition, like this gut, like something was wrong. And so fast forward 7 years, and I had such severe headaches, and I asked for an MRI, and I was told no, and I asked again, and I was told no. And so finally, the third time, and the doctor kept saying, I'm not worried. Your blood work's fine. You're an athlete. It's fine. Um, and so finally, the third time, I didn't ask. I said, I pretty much demanded. And I felt like that was the first time I found my voice. That, like, I never used to go against the grain. I never used to go against authority, and that was the first time I really felt like I did. And so 1 week later is we find this massive tumor that had probably been growing for decades in my brain, or at the base of my brain, and attached to it is a very destructive disease, which was causing all the changes in my body. And um, and even in that moment, I didn't think my life wasn't going to be the same. In that moment, it was more about validation. Like, I knew it. I knew it. And that taught me to, like, I got to start trusting these feelings I'm having, whether you call it intuition or your gut. But I was like, I'm never going to doubt myself again. Which is not entirely true. I certainly have, but it wasn't until, so a few months after that, I had brain surgery, um, and then a few months after that, we had an MRI to see how successful the brain surgery was, and that's when we realized, they couldn't get the entire tumor. The remaining tumor was inoperable, and now I'm faced with, um, the leftovers of this tumor, as well as the disease it causes. And that's when I started thinking, oh, I'm not going to bounce back from this. Like, it's not going to be the same. Because for a time there, I really thought, okay, let's just get this over with so I could get back to my life. So it took almost about 3 months post surgery for me to be like, huh, I'm not so sure that's the way it's going to go. And so, there was a lot of grief in that. And I remember 6 months post surgery, I got to a point where I had to make a very conscious decision of, oh, and I feel myself getting a little emotional about this. Again, it was just such a profound moment in my life where I could choose to stay in that grief, and I could choose to essentially not move forward. And that felt like death to me. Just felt like I could just stay here and die, or I could choose to live and embrace the life that is, open and available for me. Embrace the possibilities of what I can do, what is possible. And so it was a very conscious decision. And I talk a little bit about this in my TEDx talk, and in my book, but I really had to choose. With that said, for anyone who's listening, it doesn't mean that grieving wasn't important. I didn't suppress that or push it aside. I made space for that as well. Um, but when I chose to live, it meant all of it. It meant the grief. It meant the sadness. It meant the really hard, challenging stuff as well. Not just all the shiny, fun, happy things.
Could you, for listeners who may have the same happening to them, or maybe they feel something going on with them, what could you describe some of the other symptoms that you were having? And then also, you said that you had to live with the symptoms that you have now post surgery. So what are those that you at the beginning, what was giving you like the red flags, like besides the weight gain, what were other things? And I know you mentioned the headache that got really worse at the end there.
Yeah. So the disease I have is called acromegaly, and I remember thinking that like it took me 6 weeks to figure out how to pronounce it, but um, uh, it's a hormone disease, so it controls everything that the hormones control. So it disrupts all of your hormones, and I don't know if people realize this, but hormones control everything, everything in our body. And it's believed that it even can control our decision making. That's pretty incredible. And so there were changes in hair growth, changes in weight that I talked about. It changed my bone structure, tissue growth. And what I mean by that is, for example, I had to have braces 3 times. Um, it changed my jawline. My whole skeletal frame is larger. Joint pain. And for being young and someone who took care of myself, it was just felt like, but I'm too young to like. I know this happens with age, but you know, vision changes is a big one. Sweating, profuse. I don't mean to get gross on everyone, but like profuse sweating and feeling embarrassed about all that stuff. So, you
Yeah,
know,
I could imagine that you're like, hey, there's something wrong here.
right. Yeah. And again, it's all hormone related, and a lot of these symptoms can be explained away by other things. And even my weight gain, I've been told over and over, I'm not worried. Your blood work's great. You're an athlete. And so I started thinking I was the problem. I actually started going to Overeaters Anonymous because I thought maybe I'm in denial. Maybe I'm lying to myself about how much I'm eating. And I remember sitting in those meetings thinking, I don't relate to what these people are saying, but I'm going to stick it out because I must be denying it. I mean, that's how crazy making it got. Um, and so I continued doing my own research and learning more and more about what I have. But I want to go back to a question you asked that I don't think I quite answered, was about kind of the spiritual and emotional. I talked a little bit about the validation and kind of having to shift my perspective moving forward, but I actually I didn't feel spiritual before the diagnosis. And I remember always being someone who had this tough exterior and never asked for help. And suddenly I was surrounded by people who were sending me their angels and praying for me. And I remember thinking, and telling me and sending Reiki, like energy. And I was just like, what? But I thought, what do I have to lose? And again, I feel a little emotional around that. Like, what do I have to lose? And so I did. I started listening to an Archangel Gabriel, the protector, uh, meditation every night before bed, pre surgery, and I remember doing a more envisioning work and allowing people, even just allowing people to support me, send me their prayers, send me their Reiki energy, and then I got to a point. I'm like to like now who I am today, roughly 7 years later. I'm like, oh, can you send me some prayers? Or can you send me some healing energy? And, or people say, I still pray for you. And I'll be like, thank you. Thank you so much. Keep praying for me. And so that's been an evolution in itself as well.
I love that. Is there a moment that you, and you may not have, but I'm just reaching, is there a moment that you felt maybe God's presence or an a spiritual connection or realization, or I don't know, is there anything that stands out to you?
I have a moment. I don't know if it's really a moment, but I find it interesting. I live in curiosity. So, but I remember someone telling me to envision how I want this surgery to go, and envision the operating room, and place an angel in each corner of the operating room. And so I'm envisioning this, right? And I'm envisioning what the operating room looks like, um and having kind of pre-conversations energetically with the anesthesiologist and the neurosurgeon and the ENT surgeon and all the people who'd be in there, and my angels in each corner, and making sure that everything goes smoothly. And I remember being wheeled into come on surgery day. They give you that stuff to calm you, and so I was a little kind of like, you know um I don't want to say out of it, because I still felt very present, but just a little more calm. And I remember being wheeled into this operating room, and it was exactly like I envisioned. Exactly. And so I just remember making it. I was like, okay, here it is. This is what I envisioned. Everything's going to go smoothly. And, um, I don't, I don't know if it's just a coincidence that it looked like I envisioned, you know, so who knows?
I mean, that is pretty wild because I mean, most hospitals look the same, but I feel like they're different. You can't ever really get and
Well,
I've never been in an operational room, so I couldn't even envision it, and I imagine a lot of people can't, besides what you see on the shows, which who knows if that's accurate.
yeah, I've been in one operating room a year earlier than that, and it didn't look like this one. Like, it didn't look the same at all. So, again, I'm not one to make something out of nothing. So I just stay open to it. Like, why not? Maybe that was a way to ease my mind, going so that I could go into the surgery relaxed. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know. Maybe not. Who knows? What do I have to lose?
that's right. That's so awesome. Okay, so let's see. You were told you shouldn't, and you responded by riding nearly 2,000 miles. What did that ride awaken in you that you hadn't felt before?
Ooh, gosh. Where do I even start with that? I think just making the decision. I made the decision in that moment when I chose to live and embrace the life I was stepping into. And that was the same day I signed up for this ride. there was a defiant part of me that was like, I'm going to show this disease and the world that I can do this. And I went into the ride in a bit of an old Rissa mindset of, I'm going to train my butt off and I'm going to be rigid and I'm going to finish this ride. And I quickly learned that that's not at all what the ride was about. And Gosh, I learned so many things, but to simplify it, I learned that people want to help and support. I was so resistant to that. I was so like, no, I have to do this on my own. And because that's how I grew up, right? Um, but people want to help. I know when I know I have such a big compassionate heart, and if I see people struggling, like I want to help. Like I genuinely want to help. And so like how could I even think that there's no one else out there who would want to do the same for me? Um so I that was one thing I learned. I also learned that all the things I used to worry about or stress about, like nothing's really that big a deal. Um, and and so there was a letting go in that. It's like I don't know, I'll never be the athlete I was, or I'll never be as fast as I was. Like it's not a big deal. Like it's none of it's a big deal. Or getting cranky about um like, ugh, there's only raisin bagels today, but I wanted a garlic bagel. Like, who cares? I'm just thinking about like all the breakfasts I ate at the campground every morning in the cold or the rain. But it like none of it mattered. It's more about like savoring each moment. And this kind of came out in a I was somewhere in remote Washington, and it was another day of pouring rain. The first 2 weeks was essentially cold and rain. And I remember I had my head down on my bike, and I remember thinking, I just got to get to the next campground, and maybe there'll be a hot shower there, or maybe it'll stop raining and I can dry out my tent and all my gear. And I was so focused on getting to the next place, and I was even like, why did I sign up for this? And this weather sucks, and I was just kind of focusing on the wrong things. And then I suddenly was like, but wait a minute. You know what? So what if it's raining? Like, I'm not going to melt. And it was at that time I looked up, and at the end of, like, this is remote Washington, at the end of someone's driveway, there's this recliner chair, and there's this giant, bigger than human size stuffed teddy bear, like the massive ones that you could like lay on top of, and they're bigger than you. And it's sitting in this recliner waving to all the people passing by. And had I not looked up in that moment, I would have missed that teddy bear that like made me smile. And that was like a shift of like, wait a minute, I really need to start looking around and enjoying the moment, rain or no rain, like rain or sunshine, like whatever it is, like I get to be here on my bike, doing this incredible thing that many people may not ever get to experience in their life. And so there were really like, they seem like small things, but they were really big shifts for me. They were really big shifts. And so there was kind of a lot of that throughout the ride. And the further into the ride I got, the more connected I felt with people around me. The more playful I got, the less serious I took things. And again, I carried that beyond the bike ride, which is such a gift, such a gift.
I love that story. And it's so true. So many people are caught up with what's next? What's next? What's next? And it takes moments like this, and hopefully a lot of people have more moments like this, whatever it may be, to realize that, you're not promised tomorrow. And people say that and they know that, but do they really live it as such?
Right. Yes.
So,
And that's where that's the beauty of a brain tumor for me is wow, I get to experience life in a whole new way. And so I don't mean to sound cliche, but it's been a gift.
no, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And you get to share this new view of life with others, help them see their surroundings instead of just what's ahead.
Yes, agreed. Life should feel um, inspiring and fun and exciting. And again, I used to be one of those people. Well, once I get this, once I get to that point, once I accomplish this, or get here, get there, and no, I want it to be fun right now.
I love it. I love it. Which is why we're in our comfortable pants, having fun, talking with each other. Oh,
Yes.
okay, let me pull up the next question here. Yeah, let's talk about your memoir. Your memoir is so honest about both the strength and the struggle. What did writing the book teach you about yourself that the bike ride alone couldn't?
Ooh, gosh, that's a wonderful question. It really gave me the opportunity to reflect back at the things that maybe felt insignificant, but then reflecting back on them, I'm like, wow, that was actually really cool or really fun or really interesting or oh my gosh, wow, that was a really profound moment. There was so it was really an opportunity for that. And again, the memoir is a part of this bucket list that I pulled out when I decided I was going to do the bike ride. And so it was an opportunity to also fulfill that desire to write my story. And I was like, this is the story. This is the one. This is the time. And so oh gosh, I think the biggest thing was opportunity for reflection. Because there were parts of me coming out from old Rissa of the perfectionist and nobody why would anyone want to hear my story, and I shouldn't do this if I can't do it perfectly. And so I think it provided me also with the opportunity to let that go as well. It's like another with grief comes layers, right? And so that letting go of those old parts of me that I don't think necessarily serve me in the best way most of the time.
And I have a question just for myself. Why biking? Why
uh,
the bike? Why 2000, almost 2000 miles?
yes, because I used to be an Ironman triathlete, um, I it was always my intention to go on to do another Ironman race. And honestly, the only part I like about the entire 10-month training process and the actual race itself is crossing the finish line. The euphoria is unlike anything I've experienced, and so I just love that feeling of accomplishment. But what I realized pretty soon after my surgery and radiation treatment was because my body had changed so much, my bone structure had changed so much, and the way chemically my body responds to, you know, big activities or the medications I'm on and all the things. Like I realized I wouldn't ever be able to run far distances again. Um, And it's even challenging to walk without a lot of pain. So, so I remember thinking that day I signed up for the ride, like, I remember thinking, "Well, I could still bike, though, but, like, that's something I can still do." And again, I had to start asking myself, "Well, what can I do? If I can't do these things anymore, like, what can I do?" And I'm like, "I can still bike." And it was always on my bucket list to ride my bike across the country, and there was always some reason I couldn't. Well, I couldn't take that much time off work, or how would I even begin to plan for something like that? And that day I chose to live and embrace my life, all that was out the window. Like, I was like, I remember looking at my bucket list and looking at all those things I wanted to do, and they had been on my list for so long. It was all of these, like, things I was going to do someday. Like, I'd been trying to write a book for 2 decades at that point, and and gosh, I probably had that dream of riding across country for 10, 15 years. Like, when was someday going to happen? And so I really started, I stopped waiting for someday, and I started embracing the now. Like, let's do this now. And so I had to figure out what I could do with the physical capacity I was in, and stop making excuses of, like, why I couldn't do it, and stop waiting.
I love that. I loved the way you I listened to your TEDx and I loved the way you spoke about the can and then the synonyms that came with it. Could you talk a little bit to the audience about that and maybe help them out?
Yes, absolutely. And so I remember it took me a while, even though when I decided I was going to do this bike ride, I had 14 months to figure out how I was going to get to the Canadian and US border and start this ride. I had no idea. My body could barely get off the couch. And I remember thinking, okay, I have to stop focusing on what I can't do and start asking myself what I can do. And I took the word can, and I made a mantra out of it. And using each letter from the word can, my mantra became capable, able, now. What am I what am I capable and able to do now in this moment? And so, even though I had 14 months to get to this goal, what was I capable and able to do right now? And I kid you not, I still have the goosebumps. I remember thinking, well, I can get off this couch. And that was the first thing I did. And and then every moment after that, I would ask, okay, well, what can I do now? I actually, it took me another, I think, 2 months to get back on my bike. I actually started painting because I needed to stop focusing on, oh, this life I had and what I couldn't do. And I needed to put my attention on what I could do. And I was like, well, I can not sit on that couch, and I can start putting my mind somewhere else. And so I really tapped into mindfulness practice, and I started painting, and eventually, like, by accident, started selling my art worldwide. Um, but it was just an opportunity for me to, I call it a healing opportunity. I started painting and giving people my art as gifts. It was for my own healing. It was for my own keeping me off that couch and focused on, more positive things. And then I remember being ready to ride on my bike, on the trainer in the basement for 5 minutes at a time. And you're talking to an athlete who used to ride 65 miles a day for fun. So 5 minutes indoors on a trainer, I mean, that was like, what? uh but I embraced it. And then I did 5 minutes the next day. And then I remember eventually working my way up to 20 minutes. And then my first ride outdoors was 8 miles. And I remember thinking, I have no idea how I'm going to get to the Canadian border at that point. But I just kept doing it anyways. I kept asking myself, what can I do? And well, I can get back on my bike and maybe it'll be 8 miles, maybe it'll be 80 miles. I don't know, but I can get back on my bike. And eventually I was standing at the Canadian US border.
That is so beautiful. So that is your what can I do now?
Yeah, capable, able now.
Capable, okay.
Yeah,
Capable.
what am I capable and able to do now in this moment?
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, what were you doing before becoming a Gestalt practitioner? And was it because of all of this unfolding events that led you to become this practitioner?
It's interesting if we want to look at the world from a very mystical, magical perspective. I think it all happened at this kind of around the same time on purpose. Um, Initially, I signed on for a certification program in the modality of Gestalt, and then soon after, I was diagnosed, like very soon after, and so to me, I feel like there's no accidents. But before I did that, I was kind of this quiet, follow the rules. Like I've talked about, rigid person, and I think I was kind of always in this supporting role. I was in a supporting role of my marriage. How can I elevate my partner, and enhance his life? And then in my job, same thing, supporting role. How can I elevate this person's business and enhance their work? Um, and I had my own very successful wedding and event planning business. And again, how can I support these couples in their wedding and make it the perfect day for them? And, um, and all of those were very thankless roles, no matter how hard I worked. And and I think when I decided, I wonder if I could be a coach. Like someone said it to me. A few people, actually, not just one person. A few people said, "Gosh, Risa, you have this calming energy, and I feel like I could just pour my soul out to you." And I was like, huh. And to me, that's just a natural space to be in. I genuinely love to connect with people, and I'm very empathic and empathetic, and I remember just thinking, huh, maybe. And that's kind of what pushed me into, okay, I'm gonna get my certification and see how this unfolds. And so I still went into the certification of like, it's that rigid Rissa. But that, again, it all started changing at that point. I was diagnosed. I started realizing the world doesn't operate the way, not like the way I think it should. Everyone's different. And so, yeah, so it was kind of this process and this series of events that, and then I went on to get other certifications and look at different modalities and stuff. But what really drew me to it was kind of this curiosity and holding others, as in like your clients, capable and able, like holding them, like knowing that they have their answers within, and guiding them to find those answers, not me giving them the answers, like guiding them toward finding their own answers.
That's awesome. Was it difficult to leave what you were doing before and transitioning to starting this new venture, this new business? Were you a little scared?
Yes, I think I uncertainty is always a little unnerving for me. But I was excited about it, and I think sometimes we forget that nervousness can also include excitement.
Yeah. So, how long have you been a practitioner for this now?
Yeah, so I became certified at the end of 2019 after a 2-year intensive program. And then I went on to get some kind of complementary certifications to go with it in various things like attachment style and storytelling and things like that. So.
Oh, all right. So, back to your writing days. Your solo ride across northern Spain sounds both beautiful and brutal. What was the hardest moment on that journey, and what did it reveal to you? So, that was separate from your ride from Canada to Mexico.
Yes, so this was very separate. Again, it was about stop talking about all the things I want to do in my life and start doing them. And I'd always wanted to. I was fascinated with the Camino de Santiago in northern Spain, and it's a roughly 500-mile pilgrimage, and it's typically done on foot. But I knew I couldn't walk that far again. I mean, I get I'm in a lot of pain after about a mile and a half is my limit. So I I was like I started reading about how people were starting to do this pilgrimage by bike, typically like for time constraints, because they didn't have the time to take off to hike the whole thing or and so I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm going to do. Here's the thing, I have to share this is there was that part of me that still felt like I had to keep doing something bigger and better. So I just, even though I had a couple years earlier, I had just done this ride from Canada to Mexico. I was like, okay, I have to do the next thing. So there was still that part of me that was lingering because all of a sudden I became known as the girl who rode her bike, down the coast and doing, as this patient advocate. And I just felt like this pressure to keep up that momentum of the girl with her bike. And my bike's name is Moxie, by the way. and and so honestly, look, hindsight, that's the wrong reason to go into doing a journey like this. And so my ride across Spain, everything about it challenged me on every level. And I knew it. My gut told me, like, why are you doing this? Like your heart's not in it. And the entire trip just but like we just butted heads, the whole way. And I mean, from the language barrier, the food, access to refrigeration for my medications, comfortable sleeping areas, finding my way, mapping, losing my phone on the first day, which was my lifeline. It and then not to mention my body being like, yeah, we're done with this hard stuff. Like you've paid your dues. You've done plenty in your life. You've trekked all over the world. You've done heavy weightlifting and biked and climbed mountains. Like we're good. What are you trying to prove here? And I think that was what I was meant to learn on that journey. And and so again, when I chose to live, I chose all of it. And so when people are like, "Well, how did you love it?" And I was like, "No, the trip from beginning to end was horrible. And I would never trade it for the world. Like, I got to experience all that. And I got to say that I made it. I did it. And and so there's so much value in that. And now I walked away from that trip. I I only bike when it moves me, you know. I It's nowhere near as much as I used to bike. I started embracing other things that I enjoy more that are easier on my body. But I walked away from that, like learning, yeah, Rissa, you don't have to prove anything anymore. Like you've worked hard. You never had to prove anything. Like just go enjoy your life. And so again, it wasn't for nothing. It was everything it needed to be, and it was horrible.
That's, yes, well said, well said. So, what did you end up? Did you go back to painting or did painting never stop for you?
Yeah, painting never stopped. So I do take painting classes here and there. I really love art. So anytime I can go to like art shows or art markets or support artists, I love being creative. I've tried everything from indoor skydiving to like an aerialist class, like all kinds of dancing, like hip hop and salsa. And I go to the theater. I've taken improv classes, which actually terrify me more than anything. And so I've really embraced all kinds of things. Like there's nothing I love more than going, like perusing a farmer's market on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. So so again, all these things were passing me by when I was in that rigid place of, no, I have to do this and get to the next thing. And now I'm like, no, what do I want to do right now? And my gosh, my life has opened up.
Yeah, so beautiful. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
I actually was just talking to my friend and I told her, well, we're both reading this Purpose Driven Life. And yes, have you read it?
I have not, but I've heard lots of good things.
Yeah. So, I started this podcast with a co host and how I talked to her about like how I wanted to share stories and like inspire people who are feeling boxed in and like they've had a brain tumor. This is all they can do. And like they sit on the couch and just, die. But I'm like, no, there's more. There's like more to it. And so I wanted to share stories. And she was like, okay, yeah, let's go start a podcast. And I was like, no, what? And sure enough, we started it right away without research, without anything. And it just came together so fast. But her idea behind it was painting the people that were on the podcast. And I was doing the pod. And it was going to be a great, beautiful thing where who knows what we would have gone. She wanted to do retreats and everything. But then 9 months later, no paintings. And we had to, talk about what's going on. So my world is just, I went through all the grief stages of, anger and sadness and, not knowing what happened and why. But then later, and I don't know if this is true, but what I've come to realize is she was meant to be there to hold my hand, tell me she was going to jump with me and let go before she jumped in so that I could start this podcast. And so I wrote a poem about that. But with this, I've been kind of like talking with God a lot about God, was this my accidental happening or was this you trying to make me start something? And I wasn't getting anywhere. And I listened to a podcast that one of the ladies said she read that book. And so then I picked up that book, me and my friend. I asked my friend to read it with me. She said, yeah. So we've been reading it. And one of the things that was on there recently, these last couple of chapters, was about how you need to get out of your comfort and, really it's about a few things that God wants you to do, and that's just to, what everything you've been speaking on pretty much. And then one of them, the last chapter was love.
Hmm.
So of course it says a lot, love your neighbor, love your, and most importantly, love the believers. Why? Because he wants them to show the non-believers how much love and like we have and support and everything. So one of the things is like get out of your comfort zone. And the one thing that jumped out at me was that I struggle with was people want to go out on a school night. And I'm not in school. I'm 37 years old, but I always call it a school night because, Monday through Friday you work and you're so exhausted from your day. And we live in Florida for a reason. We moved here to live life, not to just let life pass us by. In the Midwest, we felt that. So in Florida now we're like, oh my gosh, on the weekends I just can't believe this is my life. But during the week, when we do go out, when friends visit us from out of town, we go in the out in the mid of the week, and we see all these people living their life at the Riverwalk. Like they're out walking their dogs, they're out walking, they're out, doing things, and we're sitting at home winding down for bed. And so
Yeah.
one of our neighbors was like, we want to hang out with you guys, but what if we're so busy on the weekends? What if we have dinner on a weeknight? And to me, I was just like so uncomfortable. And I was like, no, I'm tired. I want to wind down. I want to calm my mind because what I do is, speak to people, and I'm in front of people all the time. And I put so much of my effort. I'm an exercise physiologist and neurokinetic therapy practitioner. So I work with clients. And then I also teach group exercise classes on the side. So I'm like constantly talking and constantly with people. And sometimes my clients go till 7:30 p.m. at night, and I go to bed at 8 p.m. at night. Um, but then on the nights that I don't have those late night clients, I'm like, okay, I could make time to invite my neighbors over for dinner because that's what that book is challenging me to do. But it's yours. It's so, you have to live in the moment. But yes, it's so difficult to kind of get out of your own way, no matter how much we want to be intentional with how we live our lives. We are not perfect.
Mhm.
So there's always challenges in each and every day. But yes, no, you mentioned that. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's so true. I just read that in the book. And that's one of the challenges that I want to
Well,
start doing.
yeah, well, and you have to love it. So if to you it feels daunting to like cook a whole meal and have these people over during the week, like maybe you're like, just pick up dessert on the way home and be like, come over for dessert and coffee, or, make it something so that you're like, you know what, I can do that. I can do that. Maybe I don't want to cook a huge meal, but I can pick up dessert and make a pot of coffee, or hot cocoa or whatever, or a cold drink.
Great idea.
So yeah, so it's again, and it goes back to capable, able now. It's like, okay, what am I capable of? What is realistic? What am I able to do? What's realistic? Like right now in this moment. Well, I'm too exhausted to cook a huge meal. That would just drain me and I wouldn't enjoy it. But you know what? I know Whole Foods got some really good pies, or I can pick up that pie I've been eyeing for a while or something. So make it so that you don't not want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh, so good. All right, I'm gonna try that. The holidays are coming up, and my clients are flying me out to Dallas, which I'm really grateful for. Training them for high rocks, and then while I'm there, I'm gonna visit family that I haven't seen since I was like younger than 7 years old. So
Oh wow.
kind of
Wow.
exciting, yeah. But
Where
then
are
I'm
you in Florida? Can I ask?
in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, Tampa. Okay, I have a friend in Tampa, but I was just asking because I'm going to be in Miami in a few weeks. So it's
Oh,
just,
what for?
I travel around the country and give talks. I talk with like for medical conferences. So
That's so
it's a medical
fun.
conference, yeah. So
Is that through your business, through your practitioner?
sort of like people contract with me to speak. So yeah, it's through my business. So but it's not about Gestalt coaching. I might weave that in, but it's just more about um kind of inspirational talks. And then, of course, they're medical professionals, so they like to hear all the medical stuff too. But
Ah, I love that.
yeah.
I wanted to tap into the talking as well, but at first I have to work on my speaking.
Well, my gosh, you're doing this podcast, which is amazing. And I love the story you shared about that and about, maybe this is exactly what was meant for you. And I get it. It doesn't mean it was easy how you got there, but
Yeah.
maybe it's exactly what was meant for you. So I don't know. You're already there. You're already on your way. Well on your way.
Yeah. We'll just see. We'll just see. I'm just enjoying the path.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so question 7. Yeah, you meet so many patients, advocates, and everyday people who feel stuck or afraid. What part of your story do you hope gives them permission to live differently?
Ah, gosh, this is what comes right to mind is I think we get stuck in this. I think many of us get stuck in this idea that it has to be done a certain way. Like our lives have to be done a certain way. And we have to follow certain kind of parameters or procedures. And none of that's true. And I feel go ahead and color outside the lines, and to kind of smash through those barriers because I feel like the more and more I started doing life according to Rissa, oh my gosh, one, the more it opened up, the more easeful it felt, the more like at ease I felt. And and it just feels way more fun. It just feels more, and again, not always perfect, but it's just like there's just this ease to it of like, ah, I'm doing it my way. And so that's the first thing that comes to my mind is like, where are you kind of suppressing those parts of you or waiting for someday, let's say. And where could you be like, you know what? No, the time is now, or this is who wants to come out. And mine started coming out in small ways. Like I love fashion. That's something I know, but I never put any value in that. And, in my marriage, I couldn't spend any money. And so I started embracing that in small ways. Like I buy like a pair of fun, funky socks. Or again, I used kind of like the step-by-step procedure. And now you should see my closet. It's like colorful and crazy, and I love it.
Oh, I love that. So, are you not with your spouse anymore? Is that why you have a colorful closet?
Yeah, so I did go on to get a divorce. But the wonderful thing about that is he and I are actually still quite close. And when they talk about conscious uncoupling, um, we really made sure that each other was okay through that process. And it was hard. And there's heartbreak, and it was devastating and annihilating, and there was questioning and doubt. And now that we've kind of put that's behind us now we get to just be ourselves with each other. Like now, like there's this no pressure of like, um, and I'm kind of just processing this right now with your question, but it just feels like I can be me. I can spend clothes money on the clothes I want, and he can, he's very much a neat freak, and he can, not get annoyed by me leaving dishes in the sink and stuff. So I just feel like there's more wiggle room for us to just live that kind of easeful life and still love each other. Like we can still love each other. And there's always little reminders of like, oh, and that's why we're not married. It's like, so to me, it's really again a very beautiful scenario. I feel really lucky that we have each other in our lives.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So, when you look at your life today, what does being in the black, aligned, whole, and fully alive mean to you?
Oh gosh, it means everything, all of it. It's more of a feeling. I can tell when I am living in that alignment, when I am like, this is really what Rissa wants. This is really who she like, how she wants to feel, who she wants to embody. Like I can tell when I'm being authentic in my true self versus um, those parts of us that, kind of overcompensate. And so it's more of a feeling, and that feeling just feels in flow. I know it's not language I'm making up or anything, um, and it's certainly newer territory for me. But I just know when I wake up, when I set my thoughts correctly, like when my first thought is the intention I want to set for the day, like I know how it's going to go, and there's such a it matters. It really matters. Your mindset matters. And so, and with that said, when things are hard, not suppressing that. Again, it's all of it. It's all of it. So that's not a very articulate, graceful way to say it, but I'm not sure how else to put it.
I think you did well. It sounds like setting your intention, maybe being grateful and kind of visualizing your day as it's gonna, as you want it to be, kind of like the hospital day, and then watching it unfold as such, right? Maybe?
Yeah, exactly. It could be as simple as changing one word. It could be instead of, "Ugh, I have to get out of bed today," it could be, "I get to get out of bed today. I get to."
I love that. That's great. So, one of the more important questions is where can our listeners connect with you, follow your adventures, or learn more about your memoir?
Oh gosh, I send everyone to my website because it's as colorful as my closet, and that's risaaugust.com, Risa August, just like the month.com.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
That came out weird. Wonderful.
Sounded okay over here.
What is one piece of advice you would give someone who feels like their diagnosis or their circumstances are holding them back from living?
I This is the first thing that popped in. Um, is ask yourself, what can you do? And wait and see what answer comes up. It might be as simple as, well, I can switch my language. I can shift my perspective. I can, you know, um, keep asking myself, what can I do? And eventually you'll get your answer.
Very nice. Is there something else you want to share with our audience or something I didn't get to ask you?
I don't think so. I felt like I was very wordy over I tend to get overly wordy. That's why, my editor is always like cutting things out of my writing. But I can't think of anything. Your questions were beautiful, and it really was an opportunity for me to kind of process some things and see what unfolded. So I'm so grateful.
Oh, well, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. And you were not very wordy, not at all. It was all perfect. And I mean, I get wordy. So you were definitely not wordy. And yeah, I just enjoyed you so much. I will definitely link your website. Hopefully, your TED Talk is on there because I thought that was wonderful. I enjoyed our conversation so much, and thank you so much for your time and being here with me today.
Thank you so much. Such a gift. I love that we got to connect, and I will share and subscribe and do all the things. I love supporting other people just as much as they support me. So
Thank you for being here. If something you heard today moved you, share it with someone you love. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can follow me on Instagram at In the Black Passion Project for more behind the scenes and guest spotlights. And remember, no matter where you've been, you're not behind. You're becoming. Stay in the black.